Many years had passed since Meera became known as the Mermaid of Peace. The village by the sea was happy and full of life. People and sea creatures lived together in harmony. But one day, something strange happened that made everyone remember the old story of Amma and her mermaid daughter. It was a sunny morning when an old fisherman came running into the village. He was out of breath and his eyes were wide with fear. "I saw it!" he shouted. "I saw the monster!" Everyone gathered around the old man. "What monster?" they asked. "What did you see?" The fisherman's hands shook as he spoke. "I was out on my boat early this morning," he said. "The sea was calm and everything was quiet. Then suddenly I saw something big moving under the water. It was huge, bigger than any fish I've ever seen." The villagers looked at each other, worried. They hadn't heard talk of sea monsters in many years, not since Meera had brought peace between the land and sea. "That's not all," the fisherman continued. "As I watched, the thing in the water changed shape. One minute it looked like a giant octopus, the next it was like a huge shark. Then it disappeared under the waves." The village chief stepped forward. He was an old man now, but he still led the people wisely. "We must not panic," he said. "Let's send a message to Meera. She'll know what to do." A young boy was sent running to the small island where Meera lived with her family. Meera was very old now, but she was still as beautiful as ever. Her long silver hair flowed down her back, and her tail sparkled in the sunlight. When Meera heard about the monster, she looked worried. "I'll come to the village right away," she said. "There's an old story I need to tell everyone. It's about something that happened long ago, something I've kept secret all these years." The boy helped Meera into the boat, and they sailed back to the village. Everyone was waiting on the beach when they arrived. They helped Meera into a big tub of seawater so she could be comfortable. Meera looked out at all the faces watching her. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "What I'm about to tell you is a story from long ago," she said. "It's about my father, Kofi, and a terrible secret he kept hidden for many years." The villagers leaned in closer, eager to hear Meera's tale. Even the youngest children, who had only heard stories about the famous mermaid, were quiet and still. "You all know the story of how I was born," Meera began. "How my mother, Amma, went swimming in the sea on a forbidden night. How she met the fish people and was changed forever. But there's more to the story, much more, and it all starts with my father, Kofi." Meera's voice grew soft, and her eyes seemed to look far away, as if she was seeing into the past. "Kofi wasn't who everyone thought he was," she said. "He wasn't just a simple fisherman. He was something else entirely, something ancient and powerful, something that had lived in the sea for thousands of years." The villagers gasped. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. Kofi had been well known and well liked in the village. How could he have been hiding such a big secret? "My father," Meera continued, "was actually a shape-shifting sea demon. He could change his form at will, becoming any sea creature he wanted, and he had a plan that started long before I was born." As Meera spoke, the sea behind her seemed to grow darker. The waves crashed louder on the shore. It was as if the ocean itself was listening to her story. "This is the true tale of how I came to be," Meera said. "The story of how Kofi, the sea demon, tricked everyone and nearly destroyed the balance between land and sea. Listen closely, for this story has never been told before, and it all began on a stormy night many years ago when Kofi first came to our village." Meera's voice took on a distant tone as she began to tell the story of Kofi's arrival. "Many years ago, on a dark and stormy night, a young man washed up on the beach near our village. He was found by some fishermen who were securing their boats against the harsh weather. The man was unconscious, his clothes torn and wet. The fishermen carried him to the village healer, who tended to his wounds. When the stranger finally woke up, he said his name was Kofi and that he had been in a shipwreck. He claimed to be the only survivor. The villagers, being kind-hearted, took Kofi in. They gave him food and clothes and helped him build a small hut to live in. Kofi was handsome and charming, and he quickly made friends with everyone in the village. But what no one knew was that Kofi wasn't really a shipwreck survivor. He was a powerful sea demon who had lived for thousands of years in the depths of the ocean. Kofi could change his shape at will, becoming any sea creature he wanted. He had come to the village with a plan. You see, for many years, Kofi had watched humans from afar. He saw how they fished in the sea and sometimes harmed ocean creatures. This made Kofi angry. He decided he wanted to teach humans a lesson and make them fear the sea again. Kofi's plan was clever and patient. He knew he couldn't just attack the village. That would only make the humans fight back. Instead, he decided to become part of the village and slowly change things from the inside. As the months passed, Kofi became an excellent fisherman. He always knew where to find the best fish, and his boat never capsized in storms. The other villagers began to think of him as lucky. What they didn't know was that Kofi was using his sea demon powers to control the fish and the weather. He would lead the fishermen to good spots one day, then make all the fish disappear the next. He caused small storms that weren't too dangerous, but made everyone nervous about the sea. All this time, Kofi was watching for someone special, someone he could use to really shake things up in the village. And then, one day, he saw her, a young girl named Amma, who loved to swim in the sea. Kofi noticed how Amma didn't believe the old stories about angry ocean spirits. He saw how she swam far out into the waves, braver than anyone else in the village, and he began to form a new part of his plan. Over the next few years, Kofi became friends with Amma. He encouraged her love of the sea, telling her stories about amazing creatures that lived in the deepest parts of the ocean. Amma loved talking to Kofi because he didn't think her love of swimming was strange, like some of the other villagers did. As Amma grew older, Kofi's plan grew too. He decided that Amma would be the key to bringing chaos to the village. He would use her bravery and her love of the sea to create something that would shock and frighten everyone. When Amma was old enough to marry, Kofi asked her to be his wife. Amma, who had grown very fond of Kofi, happily agreed. The whole village celebrated their wedding, thinking it was a perfect match between the lucky fisherman and the brave swimmer. But on the night of the full moon, when Amma snuck out to swim in the forbidden waters, it wasn't just chance that led her there. Kofi had whispered stories in her ear for weeks, making her curious about what might really happen on that special night. And when Amma met the fish people in the glowing water, Kofi was there too, hidden beneath the waves in one of his many sea creature forms. He watched as the fish woman spoke to Amma, and he smiled to himself, knowing his plan was working perfectly. Meera paused in her story, looking out at the shocked faces of the villagers. "But this was just the beginning," she said softly. "Kofi's true plan was only starting to unfold."